The lower Mississippi between New Orleans and Memphis is the bread and butter of the river cruising industry in the United States. And for good reason, with these two fascinating cities as bookends to a journey full of delicious food, incredible music, and engaging history. In this video, I'll document a one-week trip starting in New Orleans and finishing in Memphis on board the American Queen. I'm Bob Bradley from the Pampered Cruiser, and if you're considering a river cruise anywhere in the United States, we'd love to help you out. Here's our contact information, and it's also included in the notes below the video. New Orleans is a destination that warrants more than just one night, and many river cruise guests extend their trip either pre or post cruise here. Your cruise fare on American Queen includes a hotel night before embarkation, but we spent a couple of additional nights so that we could get a really good feel for the city. To get oriented, we did the touristy but always valuable hop-on, hop-off bus tour of New Orleans. We also did a self-guided walking tour of the French Quarter and learned about its historical buildings. We found we were a couple of decades too old to do much more than wander through the French Quarter once the party machine starts up in the mid-afternoon. Luckily, we found entertainment and restaurants over on Frenchmen Street, much more suited to those of us over 50. We had the privilege of seeing Topsy Chapman Robinson perform at the Snug Harbor Jazz Bistro, and the following night we found a quartet playing at the Three Muses, also on Frenchmen Street. We returned to the French Quarter to do the jazz brunch at the Court of the Two Sisters. Both the jazz and the brunch lived up to the billing. American Queen uses the Hilton waterfront as the place to start this trip, which is more than convenient because it's attached to the cruise ship terminal where we'll board the vessel. One of the nice things about the pre-cruise hotel night is that all guests do their check-in in the day or the evening before. So on the day of embarkation, you really just have to walk on the ship. Of course, there are some shore excursion options as well. Many people take the New Orleans Highlights tour that's a half-day city tour. Guests leave the hotel on the waterfront and visit the French Quarter, the Garden District, as well as some time at the French Market and Canal Streets, and then go over to the Arts District before being dropped back at the boat for embarkation. Given that we'd already been in New Orleans for a few days, we ended up doing an excursion that would take us a little bit further afield. This was a full-day excursion called Beyond the Floodwalls, shaping the culture and history of New Orleans. True to its name, this tour took us outside the city limits, where we learned more about the region and the devastating effects of Hurricane Katrina, Hurricane Ida, and the other natural disasters that have challenged the people here. The engineering geek in me was suitably impressed by all the mitigation measures that have been put in place in the past several years to minimize nature's impact on the people and the infrastructure here. We also made a stop at the beautiful Art Deco lakefront airport on the shore of Lake Pontchartrain before having an authentic lunch at Los Ilanos Museum and Cultural Center that tells the story of the early immigrants to this area that came from the Canary Islands. Our final stop was at the fishing village of Yokloski and Shell Beach, where we met a local oyster fisherman who taught us all about his family business and treated us to a local delicacy of fried oysters. This is one excursion you'll want to show up with an empty stomach for. If you want to learn about New Orleans outside of the French Quarter and downtown areas, then this is the perfect boarding day excursion for you. It was then back to the American Queen for embarkation. So this is one of those American Queen days where we typed to a couple of tree stumps on the bank of the Mississippi. And today we're at the Nottoway Plantation, which is the oldest surviving and largest antebellum mansion still around. It's 162 years old. And here she is right here. So the Nottoway Plantation is a living museum, and it's also a hotel and conference center, so you can come and stay here overnight if you want to. It was built in 1859 for an original cost of $80,000. Many of the furnishings and decorations are original, or at the very least appropriate to the era. This plantation was originally operated with slave labor, something that the tour guide didn't shy away from addressing directly. For those that wanted to explore a bit further afield, today was the day to do a Cajun swamp tour, and if you've ever wanted to see gators in their natural habitat, this would be the perfect opportunity to do so. Baton Rouge, Louisiana. If traveling is intended to create memories to last a lifetime, then today was the perfect day to travel. Today's the day we went to prison. Don't get to say that very often. Angola Prison is part of the Louisiana State Penitentiary System. It's the largest maximum security prison in the country, with over 6,000 inmates and 1,800 staff. It's sometimes called the Alcatraz of the South. There's no doubt that there are many things broken with the prison system in the country, but today we got to see some things that were working. Most notably, we met some of the inmates that volunteer their time to train support dogs for military veterans. For those that didn't want to go to jail, there's plenty to do in Baton Rouge. Besides being the state capital, it's also home to the main campus of the Louisiana State University, so it feels like a college town. Right next to where the American Queen is docked is the USS Kidd Veterans Museum. This retired Navy destroyer, it was served in World War II, the Korean War, and during the Cold War. Natchez, Mississippi. In the 1860s, Natchez was the richest city in the United States, and while it doesn't hold that distinction anymore, it is a scenic southern town perched on the bluff above the Mississippi. It's also home to Regina Charbonneau, a celebrity chef, a restaurateur, and whose shop displays an exhaustive display of notable people that seek her out to cook for them. Regina seems to be about as down-to-earth a person as could be, but you do take note when she recounts a conversation she's had with Mick Jagger or Nathan Lane. Charbonneau is also the culinary consultant and ambassador for the American Queen voyages, so a handful of us enjoyed a biscuit-making class with her this morning. She even let me knead some dough for her famous biscuits before I could screw it up too badly. Natchez is a pretty little city just to spend time wandering around the main street and checking out the antique shops. We even found a craft brewery.
So here's a little inside secret. If you're in Natchez, Mississippi, you can come to the Natchez Brewing Company and have yourself beer and pizza. It's kind of cool. It's right off stop number 7 on the Hop On Hop Off tour.
There are also some more active excursions available from here for those that might want to go for an ATV ride or maybe do some freshwater kayaking. Finally, some guests opted for a shore excursion called The Story of Cotton in the American South. Guests were taken out to the Frogmore Plantation that remains today as a living monument to this former American cash crop. Vicksburg, Mississippi. This port stop offers a little something for everyone. Those that want to learn more about the Civil War can visit the Vicksburg National Military Park on one of the American Queen Voyages optional excursions. The local museum at the old courthouse on the Hop On Hop Off route has also got some incredible artifacts from the Civil War. The Baton Coca-Cola Museum is the site of the first place that Coke was bottled back in 1894. Even though we tend to associate Coca-Cola with Atlanta, there are lots of artifacts and memorabilia here from this iconic brand. We found Vicksburg to be the perfect sized town just to wander around in and get lost. We even found another craft brewery for lunch.
Beer tour of the South. Today we're in Vicksburg, Mississippi, checking out the local craft breweries. Take a look around. It's actually pretty cool.
Greenville, Mississippi. Prior to this trip, the only thing I'd ever heard about Greenville is that it's the place where Kermit the Frog was hatched. Yep, this is the birthplace of Jim Henson of Muppets fame. Many small towns across the country have suffered as a result of jobs and people moving away to larger cities, and that really is the case here in Greenville. In this regard, Greenville counts as one of the more authentic port stops we've made on this journey. Despite these challenges, there's still some interesting things to see in this town. The 1927 Flood Museum paints a vivid picture of that event and addresses head-on the racist atrocities inspired by that calamity. The Hebrew Union Temple is also a worthwhile stop, whether you're Jewish or not, and with its original stained glass windows and full-size pipe organ. Finally, for the music lovers, the B.B. King Museum is a mandatory stop and is offered as one of the optional excursions. I'm sorry we missed this one because those that attended came back with rave reviews. And finally, today we disembark in Memphis, and for those that want to experience a bit of the city before they leave, American Queen has a couple of different options for them. The first one is called the Soundtrack of Memphis, and it's a musical tour around the city. We were even serenaded in the bus ride through the town in between the commentary. The amount of music that has come out of this town is truly astounding, and if the YouTube cops weren't going to go and bust me, I'd have Mark Cohen's Walking in Memphis playing in the background over this part right now. We went to Sun Studios, sometimes called the birthplace of rock and roll, where Sam Phillips first introduced Elvis, but also Johnny Cash, Jerry Lee Lewis, B.B. King, Roy Orbison's, and Carl Perkins also, to name a few. And you can stand right in the studio where it all happened. A bit further down Union Avenue is the Peabody Hotel, the South's Grand Hotel that first opened in 1869. Here you can go for a martini and watch the Peabody Ducks. That's every bit as ridiculous as it sounds. Also a ton of fun. Before you leave, you can also drop by Elvis Presley's tailor at the Lansky Brothers in the lobby of the hotel. We also dropped by the church where Johnny Cash put on his first performance, and also Elvis's high school. We got off the bus for a little while at Overton Park to see the Leavitt Shell Amphitheater where Elvis did his first concert in 1954. And no trip to Memphis would be complete without a walk down Beale Street. Depending on whether you do this tour pre or post cruise, the motor coach at the end will take you either to the ship or to the airport to catch your plane home. The second excursion that people like to do in Memphis is making their pilgrimage to Elvis Presley's Graceland Manor. Once the home of Elvis and his family, the site has grown exponentially to include multiple museums dedicated to the king and his music. The site also houses his airplanes that you can visit if you wish. However, the feature attraction is still the mansion itself, where each room has been preserved in a different phase of Elvis's life, with his furniture and decorations still on display. Those of us alive in the 70s might well be prone to flashbacks from the wild colors and the shag carpets. Elvis Presley, as well as his mother, father, and grandmother, are all buried on site here as well. You don't have to be a huge Elvis fan to get an awful lot out of a visit to Graceland. Finally, one last note about this cruise on the American Queen. I didn't document the entertainment on board on a daily basis, but be assured it is just excellent. If you like Broadway-style theater, that's available in the Grand Saloon. If you prefer more of a lounge atmosphere, there's a pianist in the Captain's Bar every night. For the night owls, there's the classic rock duo in the Engine Room Bar. And the house band, the Steamboat Syncopators, tend to show up kind of anywhere there's anything going on. If you're thinking about taking a cruise on American Queen, either on this routing or one of their many other routings, then we'd love to help you out. Our phone number is 1-800-876-0168, or you can give us an email at the address below here. It's bob@pamperedcruiser.com, and all this information is also in the video notes below. Thanks for watching.